Stealth? Stealth Games, is that you? Yup, sure is. How are you, buddy? I mean, I'm great. I just haven't seen you in a long time. What do you mean? I've been around this whole time. No, it's been forever since I've seen you. I'm trying to think. It's been since 2015 at least. Before Assassin's Creed became an RPG. You remember that? No, I've been there too. Have you not been paying attention to my updates? I feel like you don't actually know me. What? I know you. Come on. We're boys, me and you. Stealth games. No, if you really knew me, you'd know that I've always been evolving, always innovating, always making steps to make sure that I'm different and changing game after game. But listen, this intro skit has been going on long enough. I'm just gonna let Adam explain the rest of this. Who's Adam? You are. You've been Adam this whole time. Always have, always will be. What? No, come on. That's not possible. I can't be. That's just... Oh, right. Yeah. Nice. So before we go into the question of what actually happened to stealth games, it's actually pretty important to know the brief history behind stealth games, where they came from, what happened to them, and how they constantly evolved. So according to this guy right here, I'm not gonna try to pronounce his name. I'm not gonna do it. But according to his book, The Untold History of Japanese Game Developers, the very first game to actually implement stealth mechanics into a video game was actually a game that roughly translated to Shoplifting Boy in Japanese. And what this did was it introduced you to this character. It was on the PET Commodore system, and you were challenged to go into the little convenience store. And what do? Shoplift as a boy. By the way, there was a sequel. It was called Shoplifting Girls. So,
woke even back then.
with this, it challenged each player to go into this convenience store and actually avoid detection. You avoided detection, and that was the very first stealth mechanic to actually put into a video game, and this was back in 1979. And that's where stealth games started to really pick up, and that's where it started to pick up a definition: avoiding detection. And of course, you know, there's a lot of video games that were out there around this time that had this sort of mechanic, avoiding detection, including your boy Pac-Man. Wow, isn't that interesting? But that's the whole point of stealth games now. So while, yes, Shoplifting Boy was technically the first video game to implement stealth mechanics into a game, most video game historians would actually put Castle Wolfenstein as the very first stealth game. And why is that? It was like I said, video game historians out there, how you doing? But most of them would actually say this is because it's the very first game that actually focused on stealth. And what is Castle Wolfenstein? It was a game where you were stuck in a castle, Castle Wolfenstein, go figure, and you were actually given a task to escape the castle. How do you do this? You have to sneak past guards. You actually have to steal uniforms from enemies. You actually have to steal maps. You have to avoid detection to escape the castle. And you have to do this in sneaky ways. A stealth game, if you will. And so there was the birth of the very first stealth-focused video game. And that was Castle Wolfenstein. And this actually sparked huge inspiration to game developers' minds, saying that, wow, we can actually make video games that are sneaky. And while all these developers were coming out and implementing their own unique ideas of what a stealth game actually is, there was one developer in particular who brought the stealth game mechanics to a whole different level. And that developer is none other than Hideo Kojima. Hey, I didn't play Death Stranding. I'm sorry. I'm getting to that. I swear it's in my backlog. But Hideo Kojima wanted to bring a new light into stealth games. And that's exactly what he did. In 1987, Kojima would actually put out the very first Metal Gear game. And this was actually very important into stealth game history because then it evolved even more. It implemented more innovation because this was the first game to actually put in detection and threat levels going the that sound effect you always hear. But I'm not sure if that came from the first Metal Gear game. I think it did. Yeah, totally did. Maybe. But it was the first game to actually put in threat levels into this, and even silenced weapons was put into the first Metal Gear game. And Kojima would actually take these ideas that he put into the first Metal Gear game, and he used that as a lesson to build himself, to innovate himself, to make paths to be different for himself, which would then go on to one of the most iconic stealth games in video game history, and that is Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. And that's where you get Metal Gear Solid. Cool, great. But Metal Gear Solid 2 was actually the very first video game to implement the most important stealth mechanic you can ever put into a sneaky game. And if you don't have this, you're a criminal. Crouch. Metal Gear Solid 2 actually introduced the concept of crouching in stealth games. And again, this would later put more innovation into the stealth game genre. And this was great because then it gave more ideas to more developers. So while in the beginning, the very first stealth mechanic game, Shoplifting Boy, gave inspiration to make Castle Wolfenstein, which would then give inspiration to Hideo Kojima to make the Metal Gear series, the Metal Gear series actually gave inspiration to many different developers to design games that you know of in the stealth game genre, including Thief, The Dark Project, Hitman Codename 47, and in 2007, the very first Assassin's Creed game, which would actually give birth to the concept in stealth games, which is social stealth, which thank goodness that's back in Valhalla. I missed it so much. What social stealth did was that you could actually go into the open world and do sneaky stuff within the actual social aspect, including sitting on benches and hiding with monks, I guess. But you could actually use the social advantage to do stealth in a game. And then it actually implemented evasive moves in stealth, and that would actually give innovation to more games. And this is what I'm trying to say, is that from its very history, stealth games have always been innovating. It's always been evolving. And that's where we got most of the games and stealth game genres that we hold dear and true to our hearts. If you'd like to know more about this, I'll actually link the article, the VentureBeat article that I did most of my research on. I'll link it in the description down below, but check it out for yourself. It has this whole tree of how each game implemented one another. So if you're more interested, go check that one out. So with new innovations became new games, new IPs, new ideas. And we saw this from 1979 up until 2007 and going forward a little bit. But starting, I would say, around 2010, we started to see a dip into stealth games. People were getting less interested, less ideas were coming about. And there was one big problem in stealth games that players had a huge issue with. And there's one issue that stealth games still have to get over to win gamers' hearts again. And that comes down to one word: restrictions. Chapter 2, we made it this far, folks. So while, yes, there was some great innovations that we've seen from stealth games, and they brought about some great games. I still love Hitman, and it actually brought out one of the top 3 stealth games of all time, Sneak King. The greatest video game to implement stealth games. Don't at me. Don't you dare at me. Ignore that Twitter handle. Stop it. Sneak King is top 3 in all stealth games. So while yes, gamers loved stealth games and there were some great games, but as more time went on, the less innovations came to be in terms of pure stealth games, pure stealth. That's all I really gotta say, is that it restricted your gameplay. It required you to get past this level with stealth. And it wasn't just this, it was even just action games or RPGs that required stealth in certain quests, and it just stopped the momentum quite a bit. And when I'm talking about quests that require you to do stealth just to beat the objective, that's just it. Follow the objective. Imagine this. When you're trying to follow the objective, every time you gain some space, you have to duck. They see you slightly, so you gotta duck a little bit more. And then you have to crawl forward just a little bit. And then an NPC gets in your way and you lose track of the target, but the target hasn't lost track of you. And they spot you and you have to start the crawl all over again. And that's the biggest part when I'm talking about restricting your gameplay. The very definition of what a stealth game is restricting your gameplay. It requires you to not be detected. That is what a stealth game is. Versus the last game genre we talked about, RPGs, where RPGs just allow you to be anything, go about the world, and you are the character and you just be whatever you want. Whereas stealth games, by definition, you have to avoid detection. If you are in detection, guess what? You lose the game because you gotta be, let's say it together now, sneaky. That tasted nice. Weird. The very thing to actually define a stealth game will restrict you all over again. And while yes, we see this in other game genres such as puzzle games, but even puzzle games, by restricting your gameplay, you're actually solving puzzles in different ways. The whole point of a puzzle game is to give you different puzzles, and you have to solve it in a certain way, and it gives you a new way, whereas a stealth game will actually restrict you by saying, please don't be detected. Please, for the love of gosh, don't be detected. For everything that you do, don't do it. And I believe this is what's been happening to stealth games as of recent. When we're asking the question, what's happening to stealth games? We're answering the question right here. The developers are hearing you. They're hearing you and saying that you're restricting your gameplay. It's boring. I don't want to be sneaky deaky. And so they decided to not make stealth games as often as they usually did. I mean, take for example, we've been waiting for a new Splinter Cell game for, I forget how long at this point. And when we get the little bit of news that a new Splinter Cell will come out, it came over to the Xbox backwards compatibility. I'm so excited. I guess there's going to be a new Splinter Cell game. No, there was not. What did happen to the Splinter Cell IP? It's becoming a mobile game. Oh wait, no, sorry. Also, you're getting a Siege character based off of Sam Fisher, named Zero. So that's cool. We're waiting for a Splinter Cell game, but that's cool. Thanks. Cool. Or even the Dishonored series. So we're waiting for Dishonored 3. And, Arcane came out and said, well, we're kind of done with the story at this point. We finished it out with Death of the Outsider, and we're kind of done with Dishonored. So even that stealth game, where it gives you all these different options of how to be stealthy, Arcane's kind of done with that series. So where does that leave us? Should we just lose hope that no more stealth games would actually come out? Should we just live in the past and live with stealth retro games for the rest of our lives? That's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. Check out retro game stores. Support your boys. But I don't think this is the case. So right under our noses, there's been a new development with stealth games. And it's been happening right in front of us. You see, with less stealth IPs, such as Splinter Cell or Dishonored, less, stealth-focused games, we're actually starting to see a new innovation coming from stealth games. And what is that? Well, instead of making stealth games, we're starting to see games give stealth elements. Like we've seen with RPGs, RPG elements, most game developers see that, yes, we're restricting your gameplay. Yes, we hear your voices. We hear them loud because you're in charge, apparently. But they said that and said, okay, why don't we just put in stealth elements into games? Rather than forcing you to be stealthy, we're giving you stealth elements to give you the option to be stealthy or not be stealthy. There's a beauty in just giving stealth elements, and that goes great into intertwining the story and giving you the option to be stealthy. All right, chapter 3, Adam, you can do this. You got this, Adam. Oh, hi. So while, yes, we haven't gotten pure stealth games in quite a while, or at least they've been very sparse, but that's because we've gotten games now where it gives stealth elements. It will ask you to be stealthy, but you don't necessarily have to be stealthy at all. The best example I can give in, giving stealth elements, and you don't necessarily have to be, is Ghost of Tsushima, where it actually rewards you for not being stealthy, but being stealthy is very much part of the story. It's intertwined. Without going into spoilers, because please, if you have a PlayStation, play Ghost of Tsushima. It's so good. It's probably my top 3 of 2020, right under Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remaster, but that's another video. But what Ghost of Tsushima does is that it actually has this sort of a tension between stealth and head-on combat, where the honorable thing to do is you are a samurai in Tsushima, and it's actually dishonorable in the samurai way to take down your foes in a stealthy way. As a ghost in the shadows behind their backs, it's dishonorable. But there's something that happens in the main character's story, which, not going to spoilers, where he starts to learn that stealthy ways, being a ghost is actually going to help you because he's on his own. He can't handle this much combat. And so you have this sort of intertwining story of being stealthy, but also being an action superhero samurai. Oh geez. But that's just it. It actually gives you stealth elements, but not forcing you. In fact, it's trying to drive you away from stealth elements, but it still gives you that option. Or a game that actually rewards you for stealth mechanics. And I know we already said that they're not making these games anymore, but the Dishonored series was a great example of rewarding you for stealth, but also gives you the option to just go head in, go for it. Who cares? But it gives you the option to be stealthy, and not only that, but gives you many different paths of how to be stealthy in that game. Or don't be stealthy at all. You know what Arcane says? I don't care. That's what they say to you. Or even more recently, the Hitman series, the latest trilogy, Hitman 1 through 3. And it gives you all these options of how to take out your targets and assassinate them in a creative, stealthy way. You can be either super stealthy or super ridiculous with it. It doesn't matter. It gives you the option. There's no more limits. There's no restricting your gameplay. So these are games that have just come out fairly recently that actually give you the option for stealth elements, stealth mechanics, and don't restrict you in a way that a pure stealth game does, where all the game is avoid detection. Don't be detected. Stop being detected, Link. But that's my point, is that there's games now that are saying, okay, we need to evolve. We need to innovate. We need to actually make stealth games less restrictive. As we discussed in chapter 1, stealth games actually needed to be more innovative and really go crazy on how a stealth game can be made and really kind of restrict your gameplay in a way so that it could innovate, it could experiment, it could flesh out entire games to be pure stealth games. In that time, it had to. It needed to do that so that we could get stealth elements from those games. And instead of getting pure stealth games, we have stealth elements. So instead of complaining about the lack of stealth games, we actually need to be celebrating the fact that stealth elements are put into games to flesh out the game even further. And that's great. That's wonderful. We can actually get games that are giving you the option to do just that. They might not be pure stealth games, but they are stealth options. And while, yes, there are some dreaded stealth missions in games, one that comes to mind is red light, green light in Black Ops Cold War, where you have to go through a bunker and take pictures of different maps. I'm not a fan of that. Again, don't at me. Ignore that Twitter handle. But what I am saying is that, yes, there are some dreaded levels. But in all of this, I just want to point out this that, well, yes, the stealth game genre is a dying breed. But we actually get stealth elements into games that we actually love and enjoy. And we don't have to be stuck in just one certain element in a game. While there are still stealth games coming out to this day and are not as frequent, there's still stealth elements being put into games because it brings tension to the story. It puts sweat on your palms as you're playing, and it brings a new way to replay your favorite game. And again, going into a game that came out in 2017, again from Arcane, Prey. A great game that put in stealth elements, and it's a great way to replay your favorite game with stealth elements involved, a stealth only option. So when answering the question, what happened to stealth games? Well, they've been evolving. Just as they always have been since 1979, they've done only one thing: evolved. So those are just my thoughts on what happened to stealth games. They're always going to come out, and there's always going to be new ideas for stealth games. But, you know, we are always saying, why aren't they coming out more frequently? But in the comments down below, I want you to write out what your favorite stealth games were ever, or, you know, are existing, or what you're looking forward to. And let's have a conversation in the comments down below. And hey, since you're down there, you should click that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when all these videos come out. You're going to get videos just like these ones, you know, coming up, you know, fairly soon. I'm not sure what the next one is, but hey, they're going to come out. So click the subscribe so that you know when they come out. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button so that the algorithm goes, oh, wow, they're pretty cool people. Let's send it to more cool people. All right, I've talked enough. Thanks again for watching the video. We love you so much. Stay safe out there. And remember, you're a human being.